Professor Pallas here with the weekly wrap-up for week 12, NTD 420, Spring 2020. Take a look at our weekly survey for the class. This week, our survey addresses factors that influence behavior change. It is important for you to recognize that changing eating habits is a behavior change, and this can be challenging for many people. In this class, 23% of you would focus on reinforcement of positives to help a client who is struggling with weight management issues. 50% of you would focus on self-efficacy, helping people feel more successful in their efforts to help a client with weight management issues. And 27% of you would focus on reciprocal determinism or promoting the positive interaction between personal, behavioral, and environmental factors when you were helping a client with weight management issues. There's not a correct answer here. The best approach is probably a combination of all three, but sometimes it's easier to start by focusing just on one. This survey is placed at this point in this course for a reason. As you work on your final group project, think about which approach you will use to promote behavior change for your clients in your obesity prevention and treatment program. Call this out specifically in your program. Tell us which theory you're using and focusing on. For example, we intend to focus on reinforcement of positive successes to promote these clients achieving their weight goals. Let's quickly review the due dates for the class. As you know, major assignments and quizzes are due by 11:59 p.m. on Sundays. Your group project is due on May 3rd by 11:59 p.m. This will be the paper that you write, the PowerPoint deck of slides that you create, and the video presentation that you create. You will also submit a peer evaluation form. Your personal final reflection paper is due on May 10th. This paper will take you back to your very first discussion board, your first survey and poll, the objective you set for the class. In class, this week we discussed modifying food behavior. Behavior change can be challenging for many people, and it's important for you to recognize that it may take many approaches to achieve success for a client in regards to weight status. There is no one approach that's better, and there is no one approach that works all the time or for every client. You're going to have to evaluate the client's eating behaviors first. You're going to make appropriate adjustments, and you're going to make them slowly. Behavior modification ideas, they could come from anywhere. So have an open mind and listen to your clients and thoughtfully evaluate their eating behaviors. This is why you're going to collect those 3-day diet intakes and food journals. Other things to focus on and keep in mind is that when you're trying to help someone modify their eating behavior, you may want to consider, in addition to food choices and in addition to portion control, you may want to consider eating speed. You could also consider eating companions. You could consider the locations where they eat. Is this someone who's always eating in their car mindlessly? And you may want to consider whether or not they use utensils. Is this someone who's evolved to a pattern where all of the foods that they eat are finger foods that they eat with their hands? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it might give you some space to work within where you could encourage them to try some different foods that require using utensils, which might slow down the eating speed. So again, recognize that modifying behavior can be challenging. It takes many approaches to be successful, and it's a slow process, and ideas, they could come from anywhere. One of the other factors that we talked about this week is the difference between appetite and hunger. And sometimes in conversation, people will use these words interchangeably, but as a nutrition professional, you need to recognize that these are two distinct and separate terms. Appetite is related to the psychological desire to eat. So sometimes when we think about appetite, we think about that being from the neck up. It's all up there in your brain, up in your head. Hunger, on the other hand, is a physiological drive to eat. And some of the ways that we remember that is it's from the neck down. And one of the biggest cues for hunger is a growling stomach. Some people get hiccups, some people get a growling stomach. Um, Recognize, though, that as a nutrition professional, you should understand the difference between appetite and hunger and strive to use those terms correctly yourself in your writing and in your conversation. To wrap up this week, I wanted to take a minute to take another look at this slide from one of your earlier PowerPoint presentations this week. It's a really strong slide that walks you through the cycle of hunger to satiety. And I would encourage you, if you haven't taken the time yet, to take the time and look at this slide and read through it. Start in the center at the number 1, which is hunger, and look up to the left, and you'll see the number 1, and it explains to you the physiological influences of hunger, such as an empty stomach, gastric contractions, an absence of nutrients in the small intestine, and the hormones and endorphins that come into play when there is a physiological drive to eat. We then move down to number 2, which is seeking food and starting the meal. And psychology plays a role here. This is where you start to think about what you want to eat. You might see something, smell something, or hear something that makes you crave a particular food. Number 3 is where you're eating. And if you look here, there are some other cognitive influences that could encourage you to keep eating or to stop eating. The presence of others and social stimulation could play a role in this. As we work our way around the cycle, we see number 4, which is where you have this sense of satiety and the meal is ending. And if you take a look, this is where the food in the stomach is starting to trigger the stretch receptors, and nutrients are starting to register in the small intestine, which is eliciting hormones such as cholecystokinin, which slows the gastric emptying and sends that message of satiety to the body. Number 5 is satiety. And if you take a look at number 5 and read that list, it explains that the nutrients in the blood are signaling to the brain that there are nutrients available and ready for use and or storage. So I wanted to share this slide with you a second time because it is a really good one-page visual of what's happening in that cycle from hunger to satiety. All right, well, what's next for this class? Stay up to date with the readings, keep watching the videos, make sure you complete that weekly class survey or poll that is part of your class participation. Week 14, we have a discussion board that's due. So your initial post is due on Wednesday, and your 2 peer reviews are due Sunday night by 11:59 p.m. Your group project is due on May 3rd. If you have questions about this, please reach out to me. And your final reflection paper is due on May 10th. This paper will take you back to your very first class survey and your first discussion post where you talked about what you personally set as your objective, what you hoped to learn by taking this class. So you could start to think about that paper, but you might want to finish watching the lectures before you actually write the entire paper. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm available via phone call or via Zoom. And once again, thank you for your time.